All right, so I'm going to teach you how to actually learn to code in 2026 because I see a lot of people and they say that coding is not worth it anymore. AI can do it for you. Yeah, I think it is still important to understand code, and I'm going to teach you how to actually learn to code in 2026. So, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about finding your goal because at the end of the day, you cannot learn to code properly if you don't know the goal that you have in mind. Now, I'm going to talk about how AI can help you understand code and learn code. I'm going to teach you the projects I actually teach and tutorials really don't. And I'm going to show you how coding or learning to code is a system. It's not motivation, it's not intensity, it's just a system that you put in place and that you basically do every single day. So, first of all, I'm going to talk about finding your goal. I don't know if you've ever done archery or if you've played darts, but you have to have an aim. If you are aiming for the 10, you know that your aim has to go there. And you want to put your arrow or your dart, you want to put it in the middle of the target. So, same goes with coding. There are so many different paths that you can take, and I wanted to show you this just to illustrate it. The many different branches that we have just in web development. We can go to the front end, to the back end, we can be a full stack, we can do DevOps. There are so many branches within tech, within coding, that you have to be clear on what you want to achieve. It is not the same if you want to be a front end web developer, in which case you will probably have to learn some sort of framework like React, and JavaScript will probably be your main programming language. But if you want to be a DevOps engineer, you probably need to learn a different set of skills that a front end engineer or a front end developer wouldn't have. So the first thing that you have to have in mind is what is your actual goal? Where do you want to work? How do you see yourself as? Do you see yourself as a data analyst? Do you see yourself as a Python developer, as a JavaScript developer, front-end developer, back-end developer? What do you see yourself up? Do you see yourself working in cybersecurity? That is the first thing that you need to be clear on your goal, because at the end of the day, without a goal in place, you won't be able to pick and stick with one specific programming language. That is extremely important. So the second thing I wanted to talk about is how AI won't replace you, how it actually amplifies you, but we have to have these three things in mind. Okay, they're extremely important. Understanding of the code. We cannot make AI amplify us if we don't actually understand what the AI is spitting back to us. Because if the AI gives us some buggy code, what? You don't understand this, or you're just gonna put it inside of the code base, and what if it breaks the system? It breaks the system. It doesn't really work like that. You need to understand what the AI is talking about. You need to understand what the AI is spitting back as a solution to a potential problem that you have in your code base. So that is the first thing that you need to have in mind, understanding of the code base, and that is only achieved by diving into the language and actually understanding and coding different projects within it. So second word that is extremely important when talking about AI is evaluating. You need to evaluate if the code that the AI gives you is actually good and it can be inserted into the code base where you're working on. If it is good, you can actually implement it in it, but it's not if it's not good, you have to be wary of that, and you have to have a deep enough understanding of the language to be able to spot that mistake and be like, okay, AI, this is wrong. Can you please spit back a different answer, because I'm not actually going to put this inside of my code base because it is wrong and it doesn't work with the rest of the context of our organization. And that is specifically the third thing that I wanted to talk about: context gathering. AI can't really gather as much context as humans can. Why? Because we have a history. Maybe you have a history inside of the company. Maybe you've been inside of a company for 10 years and you've seen how different systems have been developed, and more importantly, why they've been developed. The AI doesn't really know that. And it can have a very vague idea by what you tell it and by all the context that you can actually put into the model. But you are the human with some reasoning capabilities that is able to understand the context of that company, of a specific code base, of the reason why, basically, of why something was built better than the AI. So to me, when we're talking about AI and we're talking about AI not replacing humans, but amplifying the work that humans do, it comes down to these three words, like I said: understanding, evaluating, and context gathering. Also, if you want to learn to code, please, please be aware that tutorials don't teach, projects do. Now, I remember doing this JavaScript course on Udemy, was about 50 plus hours, and I did it. And I learned the basics. I did a bunch of projects with the instructor and I just coded along with them. But then I remember opening up VS Code for the first time and it was a nightmare because I didn't even know where to start. So tutorials don't actually teach you anything. They give you a lot of information, but then that information actually makes you stop. It makes you freeze when you open up a blank code editor because you don't know where to take it from there. So the most important thing is that you do projects. Even if they're extremely simple, you need to do projects. And the good thing with AI nowadays is that you can ask it to give you challenges, which is exactly the three-step process that I'm going to present. So the first thing that you want to do is once you have the understandings of a specific programming language, even if it's just the basics, that is okay. You want to open up your blank code editor. The second thing you want to do is ask AI to give you a specific challenge regarding the concepts that you learned. So, for example, if you learned JavaScript for loops, you would give AI a little bit of context. Hey, I'm learning JavaScript. I just learned JavaScript for loops. Can you give me a set of 4 or 5 challenges that I can do to get me familiar with them? And that is extremely important because that is actually going to develop your coding brain. Is you're not going to get used to AI spitting back all the responses or an instructor on the screen giving you all the answers. You're actually going to start to develop that logical coding brain that you need to create full stack projects. And the third thing is to start coding on your own. Like I said, don't ask AI to review your code before you have actually finished. If you have to make mistakes, you will make mistakes, and that is completely fine. At the end of the day, you have to make mistakes to learn. So just code on your own. Don't be afraid of failing. If you do, that is a lesson learned, but don't ask AI to give you all the answers because that is not going to make you learn and is not going to make you a better developer. Okay. And like I said, learning to code is a system, extremely important. A lot of people, and I think this infographic sums it up very nicely, a lot of people start with a lot of intensity. I think that coding is sitting down for 10, 12 hours on a Saturday and on a Sunday, basically just coding or following tutorials, doing all this stuff, and they have a lot of intensity, but then that intensity wears out because you're not being consistent. So coding is a system. If you want to learn to code, you need to create a system, even if it's for 30, 45, 60 minutes every day after you come back from work in the mornings. Whenever you find a little bit of time to code, you need to sit down in front of your computer and code. But it is not good to just sit in front of your computer for 10, 12 hours on a Saturday and then not doing anything the rest of the week. Because at the end of the day, like I said, consistency beats intensity all day long. So if you want to learn to code in 2026, this is the exact framework and the exact steps that I would follow. This is what I used actually in the past to learn to code, and now with AI is much simpler because before you would have to go to different GitHub repos and find blogs with challenges, but now you can literally ask AI to give you a bunch of challenges and it will spit them back to you back at you, and it will also act as a coding mentor. So it is absolutely amazing what you can do, but you need to do it on your own. Okay. So that is it. Thank you so much for watching the video. Consider subscribing if you found this helpful, and I will see you on the next one.